Or, as Senator Graham calls it, is it the party of Donald Trump?
I think the two are synonymous. And look, last night, we kind of realized that the woke right did what the woke right does best, which is lose. They do not have any political support across this country, assuming you don't count, of course, Pakistani bots on Twitter. They have elected 0 people to Congress. They have passed 0 pieces of legislation. They do not build. All they do is blame. And I was on the left. I grew up watching Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur on the Young Turks. And then I decided I wanted to be a conservative. I wanted to be part of Team MAGA. And I'm very happy to know that the overwhelming majority of the Republican Party still side with President Trump. Thomas Massie is an example of it, but to Lindsey Graham's point, you also saw Bill Cassidy. He lost his renomination bid, which is the first time a Republican senator lost in in 2 decades. So ultimately, the mainstream media is going to concoct a narrative whereby this is about Israel, this is about the pro-Israel lobby. But at the end of the day, Thomas Massie himself, between himself and his super PACs, raised close to $15 million. Of that money, only roughly $150,000 came from Kentuckians.
I think this is key. That's 1%. 150,000 out of 15 million is 1%. That means 99% of Thomas Massie's money came from the people outside Kentucky, and these people can't actually vote for him in the race. That is the very hypocrisy I want to reveal in this video. Thomas Massie is not a grassroots hero that Anna Kasparian wants you to think. Anna wants to cry about the Israel lobby. I get that. But the thing is, Thomas Massie did the same thing, just not with the Israel lobby. He received money from the Iranian group as well. So have a watch.
His biggest fans are people like Anna Kasparian, people like Ro Khanna, people on the far left. So when you spend your campaign or the day before your campaign going on the Young Turks and not campaigning in your district, not speaking to conservatives, it's kind of no wonder that you will lose elections. So yes, if you call Donald Trump a pedophile, which is what Thomas Massie was doing for months on end, and then Donald Trump in a district where he won by more than 40 points starts speaking out against you, you'll probably lose.
Anna, obviously, I need to hand this straight to you. What do you make of it?
Well, for anyone who's listening to this right now and maybe questioning the credibility of Shabbos, you should consider the fact that if he had grown up watching the Young Turks, he would know how to pronounce Cenk Uygur's name. It's not Cenk Uygur or whatever it is that he said. His opening line is literally, "Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur." So unnecessary lies. If you're lying about that, what else are you lying about?
Mispronouncing is not a lie last time I checked.
To say that the Israel lobby had no impact on this election is laughable when you consider the fact that Thomas Massie has drawn the ire of President Donald Trump in past election cycles. Trump has tried to primary him previously and failed to do so. If you look at the in-depth reporting in terms of the campaign funds raised against Massie in this race, this is according to Politico, a pair of pro-Israel super PACs linked to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee and the Republican Jewish Coalition spent more than $9 million targeting Massie, who has routinely rejected efforts to financially aid and symbolically support Israel. Another PAC, known as MAGA KY PAC, unfortunate name, stood up to Trump's top political rival here, Massie, by spending $7 million berating Massie in this election. Now, MAGA KY, that sounds like it's a 100% American-led super PAC, except you do a little bit of digging and you find out that the two founders of that PAC, one of them is Chris LaCivita, who, of course, was one of Trump's campaign managers. And the other individual who co-founded it, Fabrizio is his last name, turns out that he helped to get Benjamin Netanyahu reelected. He works as a campaign strategist for Israelis. We have Israeli infiltration in our political system, in our elections, and it's a huge problem.
Anna Kasparian just showed you the proof of influence. These are not the proof of interference, but she keeps using the word interference. Anna Kasparian does not have hard proof of foreign interference in the legal sense. Her closest thing to a foreign link is that one of the MAGA KY PAC co-founders. The strategist she references has worked for Israeli campaigns, including Netanyahu's, but a US political consultant having had foreign clients is a legal association. It still is not foreign money, and it is not a foreign government directing the spending. So it shows a legal alignment, not the wire transfer from abroad, that would actually be illegal. So please, Anna, stop stretching the truth.
Because how are you going to compete against Zionist billionaires like Miriam Adelson as they're pumping more and more money into defeating anyone who dare cross Israel? And if you want to talk about why Trump turned on Massie in the first place, okay, he turned on Massie over the Epstein files. The Epstein files were something that the Israelis weirdly didn't want released. And then once you get a little bit of those files released, you realize that Epstein had a very close and cozy tie with Israel, including making deals, cybersecurity deals for them. So again, this idea that it was totally Trump. Okay, even if you buy that argument, why did Trump turn on Massie? It was because Massie was refusing to do the bidding of the Israel lobby.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna have to quickly respond because Anna, it's good to see you again. And again, my coffee invite in LA is still open, but you've mispronounced my name every single time on Piers Morgan, and I never accused you once of lying. I just think it's a tough name, so I wouldn't accuse you of lying. So I will accept your apology later, but I digress. It's interesting that you talk about Zionist billionaires because actually Jeff Yass funded Thomas Massie's campaign as well. I find it interesting that you don't talk about NIAC, the National Iranian American Council. I find it interesting you don't talk about the Council on American Islamic Relations. I find it interesting you don't talk about the Jordanian Muslims, the Marouk family, who also funded him. You don't talk about the Iranian Joe Keeney, who I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I find it interesting that you're talking about how AIPAC has this ability to simply fund elections with any money they want, yet Maureen Galindo, who said that American Zionists need to be put in internment camps, actually won her election yesterday. Chris Rabb, who said that the Bondi Beach massacre, which killed 10 Jews by an Islamist, including a 9-year-old girl, Matilda, he said it was a false flag. He won his election yesterday. So if AIPAC is, buying any election they want, how come they didn't buy those elections? Why did they allow those candidates to win? So again, if you want to focus on money, then sure, Thomas Massie also raised $15 million from Islamist groups, from far-left Democrats. He went on your show repeatedly. But look, Kamala Harris raised $1 billion.
He did not go on our show repeatedly.
You
made that up.
Excuse me. He went on your show the day before the election, all right?
You can't just lie.
He came Thomas Massie go on your show the day before the election?
Technical issues and had to drop off. Let's be very...
So Anna Kasparian just accused Shabbos of lying about Thomas Massie's appearance on the Young Turks show. And then a second later, she did confirm Thomas Massie did appear on the show, but he had to pull out because of the technical issue. So Shabbos didn't lie. So it seems to me it's Anna who's, again, stretching the truth.
Clear about that.
Okay,
why are you
let's
lying
be very
about that?
clear.
That's such an unnecessary lie. Okay, AIPAC. After the election was called.
I'm going to continue talking.
After the election was called. After the election was called.
No, you don't get to interrupt. Yelling is not an argument.
Zionists can't
you can yell at me as much as you want. It's not an argument.
That they buy elections and then gaslight us when we say, "Oh yeah, they buy our elections." AIPAC posted about this immediately after Massie lost the election and said, our community was proud to help pro-Israel candidates win these races. Okay. So which one is it?
I want to bring Robbie in. First of all, Shabbos.
Hang on, let me quickly respond because she keeps interrupting. And I have to say that, Anna, for the millionth time, yelling at me is not an argument. Like, being aggressive is not a qualitative, substantiated claim. If you want to say that there's money in politics, I agree with you. But
Stop whining about my tone and focus on the substance. Be a grown adult.
Okay.
Okay, focus on the substance. I think it was Anna who commented on Shabbos's pronunciation of Zhank.
What I'm about to do, but you keep interrupting me. I agree there's too much money in politics, but when you only focus on one political group, which does not even represent more than 0.5% of all political lobbying being spent, then you're doing it for nefarious motives. Why don't you also talk about the fact that Thomas Massie was being run by billionaires, by radical Islamists? Why don't you talk about that as well? I agree there's too much money, but
Shabbos made a really good point. Thomas Massie is also very much influenced by the Islamist groups. So is that okay, Anna?
I am making the point that even if you have money in politics, which I want to get rid of, that still doesn't translate into forcing Kentuckians to not support a candidate. Kamala Harris had $1 billion and she still lost. What, you're telling me that 60,000 Kentuckians who wanted strong borders, who wanted DHS funded, who didn't believe that Donald Trump was a pedophile, they were forced into voting against Thomas Massie? No, they didn't like the guy. That's what elections come down to.
Okay, all right. Robbie, is it that they didn't like the guy? Is it as simple as that?
This is fun. Look, I speak for
you've got a lot to
millions
weigh in on, Robbie. Go for it.
Sure. Millions of Americans who are neither obsessed with Israel and see it as the prime mover in everything that happens in politics, nor incredibly defensive of Israel more so than any other country, and who don't care one way or the other and want to be less involved, which frankly is, I think, mostly where Thomas Massie was. Not all of his fans and supporters are like that. Massie has said that he opposes funding to Ukraine and Egypt and USAID and every other thing you can think of, but it was Israel-backed or Israel wealthy people who were most involved in this race. Look, this is mostly about his personal beef with Trump. It's personal for Trump. It's not personal for Massie. Massie has continued to vote the same way he's voted for 14 years, saying he will not vote to impoverish, to riddle with debt his children and their children's children. Nothing there has changed. What changed is the Republican Party, which has promised my whole life to actually do something about the size of government and debt, now having a unique moment of vast political power over every, aspect of our government, did nothing to follow through in their promises and betrayed the fundamental. I'm sorry, they made this promise. It came out of Trump's lips himself. No new wars, and we're doing new wars, and Massie was critical of it. Trump,
so, Robbie, do you think there can be dissent within the Republican Party? Can the Republican Party handle the dissent?
Well, it's not handling it well, and I think that's a huge problem. This is a Republican primary district. Primary voters are not like voters at large, and in a Republican primary in a deeply red state, whatever Donald Trump says goes. That is absolutely true. I knew Massie was cooked, or I suspected he was cooked weeks ago, because you can't have this kind of difference with Trump. Republican primary voters don't tolerate it.
Robbie is the calmest guy on the panel, and he just made a whole lot of sense to me. He said Republican primary voters do not tolerate this kind of break away from Trump, and he's absolutely right. Primary voters are the most engaged, most committed, most loyal slice of the base. Turnout tends to be low, but when they turn up, they are diehards. And we're talking about Kentucky, the deepest crimson district, one where Trump carried by more than 40%. So it means it's probably the most pro-Trump voters in America. So knowing these are the customers in this market, Thomas Massie should have known he was going directly against his own customer base. He went anti-Trump, calling the man a pedophile, voting against most of his agenda. The market was always going to say no. 60,000 Republicans walked in, looked at the product, and they rejected it. To frame this as a conspiracy where the Israel lobby tricked the system is to say that the primary voters have next to no agency. Massie got intoxicated by his podcast popularity. He should have known the machinery of the party would surely end his career. There is no Israel boogeyman here. As influential as the Israel lobby is, remember, Massie also took Iranian and Muslim money as well. The market spoke. Massie ran an anti-Trump campaign in the most pro-Trump district in the country and lost. The simplest explanation was the right one the whole time.
Because they're disproportionately boomer, more neoconservative Republicans. And my warning to the party is, if you're totally giving nothing, throwing no bones to the younger voters you brought in, the newer voters you brought in the last election, you're going to get crushed in the midterms, and J.D. Vance is not going to have a chance, snowball's chance in hell in 2028 with this level of disrespect for what you ran on and the people you brought into the coalition. Keep running with the boomers who love Ed Galbraith, a totally empty suit who didn't do any campaigning, didn't debate Massie. We have no idea who he is. His campaign slogan was, Trump's read my secret files and says I'm great. This is laughable. It's good enough for primary voters. It will not be good enough in midterms and in 2028. That's my warning.
Mm-hmm. All right, Shabbos, what do you make of that warning? I mean, Trump and his loyalists have won, but Massie is still a popular figure within some of the Republican base. Is this, again, a sign that the Republicans are trying to grapple with a divide within the GOP that could hurt them in the midterms?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you where Thomas Massie is not a popular figure, and that's Kentucky's 4th congressional district, by the fact that he just lost by 10 percentage points. But I agree with you. The average American is not voting for Israel. They're not really considering Israel. And I think that that's a fine thing. If you want to cut foreign aid, I'm in support of it. But that doesn't just mean Israel. I'm in support of cutting all foreign aid, including to countries like Nigeria and Somalia. But I digress. I think Robbie is right that Donald Trump obviously has a hold on the Republican Party. I mean, you asked in the beginning, what is the Republican Party today? And I just say it's Trumpism. That can be good because the majority of the Republicans actually like Donald Trump, but there will be consequential ramifications down the road, especially, I'm not so convinced about the midterms, but certainly in 2028, when there will be a question of like, what does it mean to be a conservative? And I don't think J.D. Vance necessarily has an appeal to a large swath of our constituents, a large swath to our base. So we do have to recognize that, yeah, there have been certain campaign promises that President Trump promised that have never come into fruition. Like, I don't know, getting rid of our national debt, which has only ballooned. But when it comes to like core campaign promises, like national security, like border control, like DHS, I mean, that's why I voted for him, and Thomas Massie turned his back on all of those things.
Shabbos just said no to all foreign donations, including the Israel money, which I think is fair. And for the rest of the show, Anna Kasparian keeps guilt-tripping Shabbos for being a Zionist, which doesn't make sense to me because he just said no to the Israel money. And he also made a really good point. If money is everything, why did Kamala lose with $1 billion? So do you see the problem with Anna Kasparian's framework? She's literally she's demolishing the agency of the voters. She's blaming everything on the AIPAC. And she's saying all these people who are voting, turning up and voting, they have no agency in their decision making. That's what she's saying. So let me know down in the comment section what you think. And